Hey guys, Leslie here and welcome back to another YouTube video. Today we're going to be talking about Giorno Giovanna from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure versus Volo from Pokémon. If you're going to enjoy this video, then make sure to like, subscribe, and let's just get on with it. For strength attack potency for Giorno, he should upscale from Silver Chariot due to being able to damage people the Silver Chariot could. Silver Chariot should somewhat scale to Star Platinum, who when weaker could scale to Stone Free, who is capable of deflecting meteors with enough power to equal over 100 tons of TNT. You could scale them higher due to a stand in part 3 called the Sun, which could light up an entire desert, which would require the power of equal to 6.65 megatons of TNT, or enough to destroy a small city. For g.e.r, meanwhile, he's stated to have none on the strength part of the stand chart. Considering the stand chart is able to chart infinity, and the Giorno's stand is beyond the stand chart, this would imply that Giorno's stats are beyond infinity, therefore giving him around a low multiversal level of power. You can argue that this doesn't really apply to Giorno's physical strength due to the fact that the stand charts are often shown to be unreliable, but we're just going to give him this for argument's sake when we go over Volo. Volo, on the other hand, has 7 Pokemon, and 6 of them are regular Pokemon and one of them is a legendary, so I'll cover the 6 Pokemon first. They should all roughly scale to another fully evolved Pokemon, such as Tyranitar, who is capable of destroying mountains via earthquakes, which would require the power of equal to over 3 gigatons of TNT, or being large mountain level plus. However, their regular Pokemon are likely to be far stronger, as they were able to fight the main character, who could then take on Giratina afterwards and even fight Dialga and Palkia previously. Dialga alone could cause all of reality to collapse. This would include the multiverse, which has its own infinite time space and infinite expanding realms, which there are more than one of in the Pokemon verse, by the way, which would make them multiversal plus. However, they can be scaled even higher than that, due to Giratina, which Volo also has, by the way, being stated to be the distortion world, and the distortion world is beyond the very concepts of time and space itself, which could scale to outer versal. However, even if you don't scale him that way, he would still be far stronger than even g.e.r, at least with Giratina, bare minimum. When it comes to speed for Giorno, he should scale higher than the Silver Chariot, as we previously already outlined, or at least should scale to him with regular golden experience. Silver Chariot, who is capable of intercepting an attack from Hanged Man, who moves through beams of light, which, given how fast he was able to move in that one scenario, he should have been moving at over 365 times faster than light. g.e.r, meanwhile, should have immeasurable speed due to being able to move in a time where time has been erased. He should also upscale from Made in Heaven due to the stand charts, which is just further evidence from having immeasurable speed. As for Volo, meanwhile, his regular Pokemon should bare minimum be faster than light, due to the fact that attacks like Solar Beam use sunlight as attacks. However, again, they should be much faster than this due to being able to keep up with the protagonist's Pokemon, who could fight Giratina, who, as I've already outlined, is beyond the very concepts of time and space itself, and within the distortion world is omnipresent, or at least nigh omnipresent, due to literally being the realm. So, generally, it's a tie in terms of speed, both of them having immeasurable speed. However, within the distortion realm itself, Giratina would give Volo the slight speed advantage. When it comes to durability, and it should relatively scale to his attack potency when it comes to Giorno, due to being able to take attacks from people who are comparable to him in power, and this should also abide by the stand chart as well. And also stands as well can't be hurt by things that aren't stands. I mean, that is a little bit of a no limits fallacy, but we'll get into if that's actually the case later on in the video. When it comes to Volo's Pokemon's durability, it should also scale to their attack potency, due to simply being able to take on Pokemon who are comparable to them in power, therefore meaning it's the same story with the attack potency, with Giratina bare minimum massively outscaling Giorno. For abilities, weapon, and techniques, and this is by far the longest point in the video, so bear with me. Giorno has extrasensory perception, as stand users are capable of seeing ghosts, and can also interact with them as well, which otherwise would be invisible. He has genius intellect, he has supernatural willpower, he has stealth mastery, being able to sneak things in despite him being physically checked. He is charismatic, he has minor body control, as he can tuck his ear into his earlobe. He has multiple cells with golden Golden Experience Requiem being separate from Giorno, at least being able to act on its own will. It has Aura being, derived from Giorno's soul. He has summoning of his stand. He has resistance to disease manipulation, being able to vaccinate himself with the blood of an animal immune to a virus. Golden Experience itself has afterimage creation, it has incorporeality, non-physical interaction, invisibility, as stand users can only see other stands along with stands themselves, has selective intangibility, it can fly within an effective range, has aura, is adept in hand-to-hand combat skills, has life manipulation, being able to inject life into things whenever it touches, has transmutation, being able to turn inanimate objects into living things, he has age manipulation, by injecting life into things, he can force them to grow. He has biological manipulation, he has healing, he has sense manipulation, by injecting life into their target, by punching them, their targets, basically their senses go out of control. He has extrasensory perception, much like his user, has life and soul sensing, being able to sense the individual life energy nearby, has cloning, being able to clone the cells of Coco Jumbo into creating a new thing, has limited necromancy, being able to bring things back from the dead, but only for a limited amount of time. He has non-physical interaction, or rather, like all of Giorno's created life has non-physical interaction, along with attack reflection, as any damage dealt to the creatures are reflected back onto the attacker. The animals also have adaptation, being able to adapt to a deadly virus. Many of them have enhanced senses and poison manipulation, such as snakes and scorpions. Many of them have flight, such as birds and mosquitoes. Many of them have bodily weaponry, such as scorpions, piranhas, etc. Many of them have small size with his organisms, and surface scaling with frogs. Underwater breathing with many creatures such as fish. Along with limited clairvoyance, being able to track down the point of origin of a certain thing. With Giorno's Golden Experience Requiem has casualty manipulation, as it's able to reverse the actions moment by moment to where they started, meaning that any way to attack Giorno would basically just reset it to the point where you never did anything at all, therefore meaning that no one can ever arrive to Giorno, at least if they were affected by casualty manipulation. It also has empathic manipulation too, along with energy projection, telekinesis, along with being able to levitate in the air, has enhanced senses due to being able to upscale from Star Platinum, or at least has large levels of precision abilities, possibly pain application, as Diavolo described the pain as unbearable despite having been stabbed before, and also has some level of reality warping due to his conceptual manipulation. As for Volo, meanwhile, I'll go over each of his Pokemon and what they bring to the table. For starters, Spiritom's ability Pressure makes it so that the opponent loses stamina over time just by being around it. It also has the move Hypnosis, which makes the opponent drowsy for 5 turns, Dark Pulse, which fires off a beam of darkness, which can make their target's accuracy lower. Also has Extrasensory Perception, which is a psychic attack, which is completely unseeable, which can also make the opponent slower, Shadow Ball, which is a shadowy ball, which can lower the target's defense stats as well. Spiritomb is also immune to psychic attacks and resists poisons. It can deal super effective damage on ghosts and psychics, has immortality and tangibility, can ignore barriers, has body puppetry and possession. Roserade's ability Poison Point means that if you make physical contact with it, you have a chance of being poisoned, along with its move Poison Jab, which is basically a poisonous stabbing attack which can deal poison damage, which can deal damage over time and also reduce the speed of their targets. Roserade also has the move Spikes, which deals a fair amount of damage, but also leaves about a ton of spikes around the target, which can deal damage to them over time. Roserade also resists water, grass, and electricity attacks, along with being poisoned. It also just is super effective on things that are groundwater and rock based, for example. Togekiss is immediately granted the ability to fly due to, always being flying. Its ability Serene Grace causes a better chance of each of its moves to cause the opponent to flinch. It can boost its defense and attack power by using the move Calm Mind. Moonblast fires off a blast which can lower the target's power. It also has extrasensory just in general, and Air Slash, which is a blade of air attack which can lower the opponent's speed and also just does damage. It's immune to ground attacks, can resist grass and dark type attacks, and and is generally just better against fighting and bug-type Pokemon, along with non-physical interaction. Arcanine, meanwhile, doesn't really have much. Its ability Flash Fire boosts the power of Arcanine when hit by a fire-type move, and also makes it immune to fire. The move Crunch has a chance to lower the target's defense stats. Rock Slide just gives it rock manipulation. It resists poison, fire, as we already said, and ice. It also has fire manipulation in and of itself, along with natural weaponry. It is super effective on things like steel, grass, and ice. Lucario increases its speed whenever it's flinched, that's its ability. It also has the move Crunch, which, as we said, can lower the defense stats. The move Bullet Punch can increase Lucario's speed while also dealing damage to their target. Bulk Up can increase its defense and attack stats. It's immune to poison, resists bugs and grass ice attacks as well, along with dark attacks. It does super effective damage on things like ice, dark, fairies, and things like that. It can read minds, has aura, has precognition along with instinctual reaction, has martial arts, has non-physical interaction, has staff expertise, and can seal things away. Garchomp's Sandveil makes it immune to damage from sandstorms and increases its accuracy within sandstorms. Most of its attacks are just basic ones and can deal better chance of getting critical hit damage, such as Dragon Claw and Slash, but otherwise they're mostly just regular attacks. Earth Power as well also has a chance to lower the target's defense and also grants it earth manipulation. It's also immune to electric attacks, resists poisons as well, along with fire attacks. Is also super effective on things that are generally electric, psychic, or electric, fire, poison, rock based. Has natural weaponry, has camouflage and instinctual reaction. Empowerment, its scales have healing abilities, can emit ultrasonic waves from its head, has air manipulation and can fly, along with enhanced senses. Speaking of which, Garchomp's Iron Head and Roserade's Spikes attack both have the ability to either be in its agile style or its strong style. Strong style reduces its Pokemon speed, however increases its target's attacks, and agile style makes the attack weaker, but makes the Pokemon generally faster. This gives them also a greater edge in terms of versatility. Giratina has pressure, much like Spiritomb, which makes its opponents more tired just by being around it, and when it transforms, it gains Levitate, which makes it immune to ground-based attacks. All of its moves have these agile, strong style based abilities, meaning that Giratina can become stronger or faster depending on the state of the battle. Giratina also has the move Aura Sphere, which is just a blast of aura which can never miss, along with Dragon Claw, which can amplify crits, Earth Power, which we already said can reduce the target's defense, and it's also earth manipulation. Shadow Force is Giratina's signature move, which makes Giratina completely vanish, making it really hard to hit, can lower the target's action speed, and can obscure the user as well, making it even less likely to be hit. It's also immune to ground type attacks, as we said, in its normal form. Has resistance to bugs and poisons, fire, water, grass, and electricity based attacks. It has aura, as we already said, along with immortality, dimensional travel, self-sustenance, and a casualty, as due to literally being the distortion world runs in different logics, laws, and has distorted casualty and physics when compared to the regular, realm that we consider normal. It has non-physical interaction along with chaos manipulation, as conceptual manipulation, as Dialga and Palkia are going to reshape the world into a new one, destroying the concept of spirit. Has intangibility, teleportation, void manipulation, being able to materialize and dematerialize structures. Has portal creation, has dimensional BFR, can seal people away and can straight up throw them into the distortion world if it feels like it. Darkness manipulation, being able to create weapons out of constructs of darkness. Has resurrection, being able to come back from being defeated almost instantly. Has illusion creation, being able to appear as a shadow when visiting the Pokemon world. Can sense where beings are even if they're in another dimension. Has incorporeality, has shapeshifting, has reality warping, being able to repair a pillar and also possibly the entire distortion world. Has clairvoyance, being able to look upon the Pokemon world. Space-time manipulation, resistance to space-time manipulation, void manipulation, reality warping, and mind manipulation, which makes it unaffected by the red chain. which, or rather, is unaffected by the red chain, which is what grants it resistance to mind manipulation. And its true form has higher dimensional existence and avatar creation, enhanced size or just large size, has nigh omnipresence being literally the distortion world, abstract existence being the concept of matter and antimatter, non-physical physiology, has creation being able to create the distortion world, has limited power nullification, and has immunity to soul manipulation. So I would say that Volo has more broken abilities. While Giorno's ability to reset anything back to zero is definitely OP, Volo hard counters that, and I'll get into why in the conclusion, and just generally has way more abilities, being able to nerf Giorno, amplify his own Pokemon, and just generally has a lot of other abilities which are going to be useful. In terms of his more versatile, that's a bit more up in the air. I'd probably say it's Volo due to simply having way more things he could possibly do. In terms of his better weaponry, I mean, neither of them have weapons, although Giratina could create some, so I guess by definition, or by default, Giratina gives Volo the weapons advantage. So overall, Volo just takes the advantage in all those categories. When it comes to weaknesses, and any damage dealt to Giorno or to Golden Experience will be reflected on both of them, meaning that, say, Giorno's hand gets cut off, so will Golden Experiences. Golden Experience needs to hit an object to transform it into something. Its healing ability is not really meant to heal, and it's quite painful for it to be used that way, and it's a sufficient amount of heat to create life is what's required, at least. So say he's in a situation where it's completely freezing, like unreasonably so, then he's going to have trouble, creating things. As for Volo, and every single one of his Pokemon have their own unique weaknesses. For example, Roserade is weak to ice and fire attacks, Togekiss is weak to ice, electricity and rock attacks, Arcanine is really weak to water attacks, Lucario is weak to fire attacks, Garchomp is weak to ice, things like that. Giratina itself is weak to dragon, ice and dark attacks. Other weaknesses consist of moves like Petal Dance and Raging Fury. While they are very powerful moves, it locks the Pokemon into using that move, so they can't use any other move for, at least the next 5 turns. Close Combat, while it is also a very powerful move, it makes Lucario more vulnerable as a result. And while Volo is an incredible genius, he is also insane and completely psychotic towards the end of the story. So in terms of as the worst weakness, I'd probably have to hand it to Volo just by having way more. So who wins the fight? We've gathered from this that the speed is a tie, although given different circumstances it's not, which we'll get into. Volo is stronger, more durable, has better abilities and more versatile and has better weaponry, while Giorno's less vulnerable. So that chart does look like it's in Volo's favour, and I'll get to it when it comes to the Giratina part of the video, but you can have it actually be quite close, and Giorno does have a few advantages over him. The fact that none of their Pokemon can see Golden Experience or Golden Experience Requiem is a massive thing in Giorno's favour, along with him being unable to damage Golden Experience Requiem and things like that. It does help out Giorno a lot. Also, Giorno's Golden Experience Requiem would work on all of Volo's 6 Pokemon, bar Giratina, which I'll get to as to why it wouldn't work in Giratina. So even while their Pokemon would be stronger than Giorno, Giorno does have a way of keeping them at bay. And while Giorno is much weaker in Golden Experience form rather than Golden Experience Requiem, he should also still be able to heal himself across the fight, and given his insane intellect, he'll probably give ways of strategizing and figuring out how to attack Volo. Not to mention that his attack reflection can also play massive parts, considering attacks like Lucario's Close Combat is outright weak on Lucario, and Garchomp's Dragon Claw is weak on Garchomp. So if it was solely down to Volo's 6 Pokemon, I would argue it'd either be a stalemate or in Giorno's favour. However, Giratina comes into play because that pretty much changes everything. As Giorno does have, casualty manipulation, but Giratina is completely a-casual, meaning that it wouldn't be affected by Giorno's reset ability. You could argue that Giorno has reality warping, but so does Giratina. And if Giratina sends Giorno to the distortion world, then it's GG, because then it's faster. And it generally just has way more abilities, along with its own conceptual manipulation as well. And while, Giorno can reflect attacks back onto it, many attacks won't affect it. For example, Aura Sphere won't affect Giratina, neither will Earth Power when it's transformed, and so will things like Arcanine's fire attacks, which by the way will only amp Arcanine and make it faster, along with Togekiss's poison attacks, which will just resist, and Spiritom's extrasensory, which again will also resist. Not to mention the fact that across the fight, Giorno's going to be more nerfed and nerfed as the fight goes on. Yeah, it can resist, Roserade's poison attacks by creating a vaccine to it, but that's only one out of several different things that can make him slower, weaker, less durable, all the while Volo's Pokemon are getting stronger, more durable, and faster as the fight goes on, meaning that it's not really in Giorno's favour. And there are many things as well that can deal damage over time, not to mention things like agile and strong style attacks, which will just give Volo an even bigger advantage. And even like the bugs, the things that Giorno summons, they'll, like the Pokemon that Volo has will deal significant more damage to it, even if it will reflect back onto them. So overall, Giorno doesn't really stand a chance. His best way of winning is getting like Golden Experience Requiem off right away, and then killing Volo before Giratina appears. However, you can even argue that Giratina and Lucario can sense Golden Experience or Golden Experience Requiem due to being able to sense Aura. So yeah, Volo definitely wins this fight. If you enjoyed this video, then make sure to like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.
Time usually goes backwards or forwards. What if it went diagonally?
Oh, I smell bitch in here.
No enemy!
I will send you to Jesus.